Hey everyone, welcome back to another amazing video of Helicon Explanations. So today, I think you won't expect this video, but I have also taught about SAT. So SAT is all about Scholastic Aptitude Test. It's all about your school syllabus. So even NTSC gives you two papers. Paper 1 is all about MAT, Mental Ability Test, and paper 2 is all about SAT, Scholastic Aptitude Test. So now let's learn about a topic in SAT, a very interesting topic in SAT. So the topic is world between world wars. So even this is an important chapter in 10th class SSC board examination. So as we all know that we'll be following practicing, exploring and learning. Okay, learning, exploring, practicing. So let's get started. So getting into the chapter of war between world wars, so let's take a little bit of introduction. So in this chapter, we shall talk about the history of the world in the first half of the 20th century, the causes and consequences of two world wars, and the creation of an institute like United Nations to ensure world peace development. UNO, United Nations Organization. So first, let's see what did this Eric Hobsbawm told about the early 20th century and what he named it. So Eric Hobsbawm, a historian, called the 20th century as Age of Extremes. So why did he call this 20th century as the Age of Extremes? So you can see his picture on the screen. So Eric Hobsbawm, a historian, called the 20th century the Age of Extremes. So let's see why did he call this as the Age of Extremes. Many experiments happened in the 20th century. Fascism was growing because of ideas of unquestioned. On one hand, fascism was growing, right? Strong because of its ideas of unquestioned power and hatred for the other people. Fascism is nothing but like terrorism or like that. Okay, similar to terrorism. On the other hand, the need for democracy was also growing. So what is democracy? Democracy is nothing but people's rule, where people rule themselves. So like it's happening right now. So we people rule ourselves. We keep our constitution, we break the rule or we make the rule, or we invented the law and we did everything. So that is called as democracy. And what is the opposite of democracy also we'll learn now. Okay, the average life expectancy rate was growing higher because of new discoveries in the field of medicine. So the average life expectancy is all about average life duration. So average life duration of each and every person was increasing because of new discoveries in the field of medicine. And the next thing, literacy levels are also became high. More people had access to better education. So okay, literacy levels. I'm sorry, literacy levels. You know what is literacy? Studying. Many people had access to better education in the middle of the 20th century. And new art forms like movies, new discoveries were made about life and atoms. More than 100 of countries became independent and they followed democracy. People live with equality and fraternity. And the next thing, many great experiments happened in 20th century. In some countries, socialist societies came up. In socialist societies, people lived with equality and fraternity. We know this already. Some countries adopted liberal democracy where people had political liberty and a capitalist economy. So I'm going too fast. I hope you understand it, but you have a mind map on the screen. So Eric Hobsbawm told that the early 20th century and middle 20th century, he explained about it. So he called it as Age of Extremes. So because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 examples on your screen. So everything happened rapidly and extremely in the 20th century. World wars took place. After that, expansion of democracy took place. Life and atom, more about life and atom were discovered. Movies, entertainment, literacy, life expectancy, new medicines were discovered. Life expectancy, life average life duration is increasing, and literacy. More people had access to better education, movies, the entertainment of people, and acting, all that kind of field is getting increased. So that's why this historian called the 20th century as age of extremes. So let's see the last line. Some country adopted liberal democracy. So don't confuse with democracy and liberal democracy. You have to underline this and write its meaning. A democratic system of government in which individual rights and freedoms are officially recognized and protected, and the exercise of political power is limited by the rule of law. So this sentence is complex. Just understand that liberal democracy or democracy is nothing but a democratic system where people rule themselves. So you can form this sentence as ever you like. I hope you all have the materials. If you don't have the materials, you can just read the sentence and understanding it. I hope that's not too difficult. If it's too difficult, just comment me down in the comment section and I'll reply you definitely. Or join our Discord server with the link given below. Next thing, let's see about capitalist economy. So what is a capitalist economy? Capitalism or capitalist economy is referred to as the economic system where the factors of production such as capital goods, labor, natural resources, and entrepreneurship are controlled and regulated by private businesses. Like, if you consider me myself rule this whole country. Like, not whole country, like whole state. Only the whole state holds in my hand. Like, they work under me, they report to me, everything is controlled by me. Only one person or only one guild is ruling over the state without like any voting system or like any kind of like that. They just rule. So this is called capitalism. So capitalism is all about like it's king's rule. So whatever they say, you have to follow it. If they say that increase the taxes, you have to increase. Or if they say that you have to pay more, you have to pay more. So everything is decided by themselves. So this is the difference between democracy and capitalism. So I said now I'll say the opposite of democracy, that is capitalism. So in democracy, people's rule, I mean, people's feelings will be taken into consideration. But whereas in capitalism, only the people who are ruling, their point of view and their law will be taken into consideration. So I hope you are clear. You just make the opposite sentences of democracy. That's more than enough. That's how you write differences. Just read one thing and just write the opposite sentences for the other thing. Moving on to the next one, let's see about timeline of our world between world wars and World War One countries that fought in World War One. So first timeline is all about beginning of First World War 1914, Russian Revolution 1917, end of First World War 1918, Treaty of Versailles in 1919, formation of USSR in 1922, Great Depression in 1929, Hitler becomes the Chancellor of Germany 1933, beginning of Second World War 1939, end of Second World War 1945, and formation of United Nations Organization UNO. So first let's see what happened with these Europe countries. At the beginning of the 20th century, the world was divided into developed industrialized countries of the West, including USA, Germany, France, Italy, etc. in the West side, and colonized countries of Asia and Africa. These countries were under the control of developed nations. The industrial countries had split into two groups or blocks. So they are saying that Europe has been split into two groups or two blocks. So one side there was Germany, Austria and Hungary, and the other side was Britain, France and Russia. Each group wanted to dominate over the world and control as many colonies and markets as possible, which led to occurrence of world wars. The greediness of people is always seen in here. The First World War began in 1914. It was really a world war because almost all the countries, imperial nations and their colonies of the world took part in the war. China, Japan on the east and the US on the west took part in the war. The First World War ended in 1918. You can see the timeline over there. In between, Russian Revolution is there. We'll talk about it later. Britain and France defeated Germany and its allies in the war. So who defeated who? Let's make that clear again. Britain, France, Russia defeated Germany, Austria, Hungary. So many guilds are there on both sides. I've just said the easy one to remember. So now let's see once about industrialist capitalism. After that, let's get into causes of the world wars, like why the world wars took place in these timelines, like 1914 to 1945. This timeline has has gave birth to two world wars, World War I and World War II. So 1914 to 1918, one world war, and 1939 to 1945, second world war. So first we have to know what is industrialist capitalization, and next let's go for causes for the world wars. Okay, so first thing in long-term causes of world wars is aggressive nationalism. But one second, before going into the first and second and third and fourth and fifth, first let's see a mind map. So long-term causes of world wars: aggressive nationalism, imperialism, secret alliances, Balkan politics and militarism. So some of the words may sound familiar and some of them may not. But don't worry, we'll cover each and every cause in long-term causes of world wars. So now let's go to first, second, third and fourth and fifth. So first was aggressive nationalism. The ideology of nationalism was a positive impulse, but this ideology could also be used to create pride in oneself and hatred against neighbors. Italyism, fascism from 1923 and National Socialism of German Nazis were the other forms of aggressive nationalism destructive mode. So I hope you don't understand anything. I know that you won't understand anything by these three sentences. Let me make that clear for you. The ideology of nationalism was a positive impulse. Okay. Many newly formed modern nations were created in Europe because of people's strong feeling of nationalism. And next, it was also the force behind the unification of Germany and Italy. So unification of Germany was and Italy. But this ideology created pride in these nations and hatred against the neighboring countries. So Germany and Italy started hating each other. Pride had begun in each other, and they started hating each other. So in Italy, they followed Mussolini's rule, and in Germany, they followed Hitler's rule. So all were believed to Mussolini in Italy and Hitler in Germany. Okay. Their idealism in both of these countries were followed in 1923, that is aggressive nationalism, destructive mode. Fascists promoted aggressive nationalism, and that is Italian fascism, and German was Nazis. Fascists promoted aggressive nationalism and the image of victorious Germany ruling over the world. They also mobilized the Germans against the other nations of Europe. Now the immediate cause of World War had begun. So aggressive nationalism was one. So German and Italy was started hating to each other, and pride had begun. Hitler and Mussolini, Hitler on one side, Mussolini on the other side. Germany was a victory goes to Germany. They also mobilized Germans against the other nations of Europe. And next, if you see the mind map again, we have to go to imperialism. The second long-term cause of the world wars is imperialism. So first, let's see these three sentences on the screen. By the end of the 19th century, there was a lot of race of colonies between European powers. As the new industrial powers like Japan, Germany, and Italy emerged, they wanted to redivide the colonies. This created much stress, often leading to wars. So I again say that you definitely won't understand by these three sentences. Let me make that clear for you. Watch this clip repeatedly so that you can note down the points. First, what happened was Britain, France, Italy, Russia, Germany. Britain, France, Italy, Russia, Germany wanted to occupy as many countries as they want for more raw materials, like they want to occupy more countries in Africa and Europe continents. So the first thing they wanted to occupy was, the first reason they wanted to occupy was to get the raw materials for cheap price, for cheap, as much as cheap they could get them. And the next one, finished raw materials can be stored in these countries, so they can they can do business with it, or they'll do whatever they want. And the third one, extras and leftover can be invested in their own colonies. And the next thing what happened was, new industrial powers demanded for redistribution. New industrial powers like Japan, Germany, and Italy wanted redistribution of colonies in Europe. But Britain and France did not like their proposal. They did not accept their proposal of new industrial powers. So this led to immediate cause of World War I and World War II. So let me repeat that again. With the growth of industrial capitalism, European countries like Britain, Germany, and US needed to access raw materials and markets for their products. They wanted to invest their growing capital in the colonies. Thus, by the end of the 19th century, there was a race for colonies between European powers. The newly emerged industrial powers like Germany and Italy wanted to redivide the colonies, but the old industrial powers like Britain and France were not ready for this. This created a lot of tension, often leading to, immediately leading to World War I and World War II. So this is like imperialism. So I hope you understand this. And the next thing we'll go for secret alliance. So secret alliance is the third one in the long-term causes of world wars: secret alliances, militarism, and Balkan politics. These three are very, very simple. You will understand it clearly. I will explain you clearly. The third cause for immediate breakout of World War I is secret alliance. So we can divide this secret alliance paragraph that is given in textbook to 7 points. So in here, after defeating France in 1870, Bismarck, the German chancellor, wanted to isolate France. So he wanted to make France alone. So that's why he made a secret alliance or agreement with Austria in 1879 and later to Italy in 1882. Hence it was called as Triple Alliance. The Germany, the Austria and Italy, these three were called as Triple Alliance. So France broke out their isolation and made a mutual alliance with 1891, where the Bismarck made in 1879 and completed his Triple Alliance in 1882, but France broke out their isolation in 1891. See the timeline gap, friends. You have to remember each and every timeline and the date and the year so that it will be easier to write in exams. And with Britain in 1904. So finally this triple entente was formed in 1904. Triple entente means France, Russia and Britain. This is called triple entente, and triple alliance means Germany, Austria and Italy. Okay, the next one, triple alliance and triple entente made the European powers jealous and suspicious on one another. Instead of real peace, these alliances created an atmosphere of fear and armed peace in Europe. So they made a big mess with European powers and they made jealous and suspicious of one another. So this is called a secret alliance. Whatever had happened, I have just written in these 7 lines. The next thing, let's make a short note on secret alliance and how to represent it in exam, descriptive exam. Okay, we'll take a brief look of how to write in descriptive exam, and then we'll move to the next one, that is militarism, and then Balkan politics. So militarism is also one of the main cause that led to World War I, and Balkan politics is also one of the one. So we'll take a look at these three. So when they give to write a short note on secret alliances, so first we'll write that Bismarck, the German chancellor, decided to isolate France. So he entered into a secret dual alliance with Austria and later Italy joined in it in 1882. Then this defensive alliance was called Triple Alliance before World War I. In contrast for that, France broke out their isolation by striking a mutual alliance with Russia in 1891 and with Britain in 1904. Thus, Russia, France and Britain formed the Triple Entente in 1907. The Triple Alliance led by Germany and the Triple Entente led by Britain and France made the European powers jealous and suspicious on one another. Ultimately, this division resulted for the breaking of World War I. Okay, so this is a short note on secret alliances. So if they gave in the exam, you can write these 4 points to cover the entire topic on secret alliances. Let me make this clear for you. The World War I broke out in 1914. And again the timeline in the before slide I gave you, World War I was held on 1914 and Russian Revolution took place in 1917, and after 1 year, end of World War. The end of First World War took place, that is 1918. And then the Second World War, beginning of Second World War took place in 1939, and the Second World War completed in 1945, 2 years before our independence. Okay, and formation of UNO, United Nations Organization, formed in 1945, the same year where the Second World War has completed. So this is the clear timeline again. So if you want again a clear timeline from 1914 to 1945, you just Go 30 seconds or 40 seconds behind and just take a look on it. The next one, as I said in the line, is militarism. So the militarism is the belief that military power is the best way to ensure security to solve problems. I can't explain all the problems, but their problems were to resolve the security issues they were having to their respected countries. The military expenditure of these powerful countries increased by over 3 times, that is from 130 million pound to 397 million pound during the years from 1880 to 1914, the beginning of First World War. As you can see the graph over here, military expenditure by great powers, 6 countries I think: Germany, Austria, Hungary, Great Britain, Russia, Italy and France between 1880 to 1914. This graph tells us the expenditure of their military items that they have spent between these years up till World War I. There are 3 important things in the context of militarism. Firstly, all these countries had built massive standing armies for their defense for the World War I. They did not expect World War, but they have expected wars between their countries. Secondly, they competed with each other in increasing their military weapons. See, if you lose, your military will be under my control. So, in case of that only, they have competed with each other to increase their military weapons and strength and defense of their countries. They encouraged people to support wars. They've even not only taking army, they've also considered the common people like us, and they have motivated and encouraged them to take participation in war. But that's not good actually. Thirdly, a large industry of weapons emerged with constantly promoted the idea of using war as a solution to diplomatic problems they had. So this is all about militarism. In simple word, they have just used their their economy, their military and all this for wars and their to solve the key issues for the countries. And the next thing, they have built so many massive armies for their defense and for their safety purposes. So the next one in our line will be Balkan politics. So what is this Balkan politics? Let's see that. The next subtopic in our line is Balkan politics. So this Balkan politics in our textbook is a small paragraph, but for us to understand the story behind this Balkan politics, there is huge story behind this Balkan politics. So please listen carefully and then note down these points that is given on the screen for your sake. These are well categorized points from your textbook paragraph itself. Okay. So the first thing, there are many small kingdoms in the Balkan Peninsula. So what is this Balkan Peninsula, first thing, and what are the small kingdoms, the second one. So let me show you the map of this Balkan Peninsula. So this is Balkan Peninsula countries, not Russia, Ottoman Empire and Italy. These small countries where you can see that Austria, Hungary, Serbia and all these the small countries are called as this peninsula. Let me show you that. This one, this is Balkan Peninsula. Okay, so let me keep this red mark it like this only, so you can understand that that is a Balkan Peninsula and this one is a peninsula, I hope. Okay, let's go on to the next one. So there were small kingdoms in this Balkan Peninsula, and the next thing, people belonging to many sections, languages were living there. Okay, they were ruled by Ottoman Empire. After the fall of Ottoman Empire or Turkish Empire, Austria, Germany, Turkey, Russia competed for the supremacy over the area. That means control over the area or occupy the area. Moreover, Russia and Turkey were trying to control the Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea to their hands for a long time. So they wanted to show their, what you can say, their highness. They wanted to show their pride over capturing this Mediterranean Sea and Black Sea over the trade, and they wanted to show their supremeness over other regions over there. So there are always tense situation around the region. There were always tense situation in the Balkan region. During the same time, Austria trying to suppress the Serbian rebels in Bosnia who were against the rule of Austria. I hope you did not understand anything. Let me make this into a clear story and picture. So these are based on Balkan Peninsula in south part of Europe. In south part of Europe, beside Italy, we have a peninsula called Balkan Peninsula, as you can see over there. In this Balkan Peninsula, there were different small countries. At that time, it was in the rule of Turkish Empire or Ottoman Empire. When Turkish Empire came to an end in Balkan Peninsula, then Germany, Russia, Italy, Austria wanted to control or occupy this region. There were different kinds of problems in those areas. There were internal problems in those countries like civil wars. Neighboring countries or areas wanted to expand their kingdom in Balkan Peninsula. This Russia, Ottoman Empire, Italy, they wanted to, not Ottoman Empire, Russia and Italy and the industrial countries wanted to expand their countries in this Balkan Peninsula. That was their small hope. So they can expand their industrial powers, they can expand their trade, rule, and their land, etc. etc. And the next thing, one on another, there were people from different sects, languages, cultures. So they were missing their unity in Balkan Peninsula. In India only, if you meet a Christian or a Muslim, you'll show some difference between your friend Hindu and your friend Christian. You'll treat your friend Hindu in a great way or in a nice manner, or you'll treat your Muslim friend in some kind of degraded manner, right? Anyone will do that. It's like their birthright to do it. In Balkan Peninsula also it was going on like that only, but it's wrong to show inequality between others. Unity was absent among them in Balkan Peninsula, and most of the industrial powers in the West like Britain, USA, Germany, France, Italy and colonized countries of Africa and Asia wanted to occupy that area for market and raw materials. Even during Turkish rule or Ottoman Empire rule, there was a conflict between Turkey and Russia over Black Sea and Mediterranean Sea. As we did discuss that before only. Okay? Russia and Turkey wanted to show their dominance towards trade through Mediterranean Sea and Black Sea. They fought with one another and they supported opposite groups in those countries. All this led to highly tense situation in Balkan Peninsula. I hope you understood this clearly. When Turkey and Russia wanted to show their dominance towards trade through Mediterranean and Black Sea, then that dominance for a fight and all these, that created a tense situation in this Balkan politics. Balkan Peninsula. What will happen next? So the tensions were created in these regions. Okay, so this is all about Balkan Peninsula, and you might be wondering that how is this related to World War I or II? Yeah, I know this. I know you'll get this doubt, but we'll clear this doubt later on by clearing some other concepts. So primarily you have to keep this Balkan Peninsula, Balkan politics topic in your mind. You have to keep this story in your mind. First, it was in rule with Turkish or Ottoman Empire. After the end of the Ottoman Empire, Germany, Russia, Italy, Austria wanted to control or occupy this region. And then there was no unity in Balkan Peninsula. And then after that, Industrial powers wanted to occupy Balkan Peninsula. Industrial powers, you know that it will be in your first page number only, page number 162 in 2021, in 2019 to 2020 textbook, page number 162 in that. In the last para, you'll be having that. I don't know about the new textbook, but no problem. Anyway, you'll be having in the first page only. In that side only, you'll be having the timeline. You'll be having that industrial powers over there. And next, even during Turkish rule or Ottoman Empire, there was a conflict between Turkish and Russia over Black Sea. So the Turkey and Russia war went on when there was Ottoman Empire. When there was Ottoman Empire only, this dominance over the trade of Turkey and Russia went on. What happened after that? These countries are there, right? Like industrial countries, and Germany, Russia, Italy, Austria wanted to control this Balkan Peninsula. So now I think you got a clear picture why this Balkan politics led to First World War. Let's take it as a small conflict for the First World War. When the Ottoman Empire was there only, then Turkey and Russia was having a conflict to show their dominance over their trade. And after that only, when the Ottoman Empire rule was fallen in Balkan Peninsula, then the neighboring countries which were there over there and the industrial countries, they were trying to expand their rule and search for raw materials and to increase their industries. War and conflicts happened between Balkan politics and all these neighboring countries. So this was even a small conflict, or you can take it as a large conflict for First World War I. I think this is a clear picture for you of Balkan politics, militarism, secret alliances, imperialism, and aggressive nationalism. Now, these are long-term causes, like small causes or which were going on long and long and long. But next, let's see what was the immediate cause. What was the immediate cause of World War I? Okay, let's see that immediate cause. Next. The next thing I told, we will go to immediate cause of World War I. But before going into that, we will also cover the topic of industrial capitalism. You know what is meant by capitalism? Ruling by one person or a owner, like a what you can say, a corporate company. Industrial capitalism is characterized by the increasing use of machinery to maintain an economic balance through its production process. It is an economic system in which trade, industry, and the means of production are controlled by private owners with the goal of making profits in a market economy. It doesn't come into democracy. At the beginning of 20th century, the world was divided into developed countries of West and the colonized countries of Asia and Africa. These countries were under the control of developed nations. The industrialized countries had split into two enemy groups or blocks. Let's listen the complete story first, then you'll understand everything. Germany, Austria and Hungary were on one side, and Britain, France and Russia were on other side. I hope you know about this division. Germany, Austria and Hungary. Can you say me what is the division of Germany, Austria and Hungary? Okay, the next one, Britain, France, Russia. What is this Britain, France and Russia? What were they called in Secret Alliances topic? Recall everything. Each group wanted to dominate over the world and control as many as colonies and markets as possible, which led to the occurrence of world wars. So we can clearly say that even this was a minor conflict, or you can say like 40% of the conflict for the First World War. It was really a world war because almost of all the countries of the world took part in the war. Mhm. The First World War began in 1914. This also covers the topic of First World War. So before it's better that to cover immediate cause. It was better, but okay, no problem. Let's complete this. Japan on the east and US on the west took part in the war. You know about Hiroshima and Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right? I'm sorry, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. What happened? The First World War ended in 1918. Britain and France defeated Germany and its allies in the war. You know this one also. And you know the First World War, the beginning date also. You know which countries took part, because all the countries in the world took part in the war. So that's why it was called World War One. So it was really a world war because almost all the countries, the imperial nations and their colonies of the world took part in the war. China, Japan on the east and US on the west took part in the war. And next, each group wanted to dominate over the world and control as many colonies and markets as possible, which led to occurrence of world wars. We all know that also. These were all covered before only. When I showed you, for the first time in history, planes were used to drop bombs in World War One. Okay, so moving on to the next one. Now let's see what was the immediate cause of World War One. Why this World War One took place? Why did it immediately broke out in 1914? Did it immediately broke out, or after planning and all those, did it come out? Let's see that. So the next one, we have to know about what was the immediate cause of World War One. What were the immediate causes of World War One? So the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, like he was the one to the reason that was given out. I mean, because of him only, the World War One broke out in 1914. We'll see why. What was his role? Did he start the war, or was he the reason for the war? And next, he was an Austrian prince. Archduke Franz Ferdinand was an Austrian prince. He was murdered by Gavrilo Princip in Serbia. He was a Bosnian, Gavrilo. So I hope you understood the 75% of the story. Because of this murder only, Austria went to Serbia and asked them the reason behind the murder. Serbia could not give the satisfactory reason, so that the Austria hosted a war on Serbia. On 28th June 1914, Austria declared war on Serbia. And next, the countries were divided into two parts. One was Central Powers and another one was Allied Powers. Central Powers are Germany, Austria and Turkey on one side, and Allied Powers, Britain, France and USA, were on one side. Of course, in Allied Powers, Russia was also there, but Russia, due to its Russian Revolution in 1917, it made a peace agreement with Germany and it was out of the war. And 28 July 1914, World War One started. After that, Treaty of Versailles and League of Nations we'll discuss later. First, we'll get into the story. What was the actual story that caused to broke out World War One? The immediate cause behind World War One was the murder of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, an Austrian prince, by Gavrilo Princip in Serbia. He was a Bosnian, Gavrilo Princip. When Archduke Franz Ferdinand was on a visit to Serbia, he was attacked and murdered. This developed hatred in Austria, and Austrian Empire thought it was done by the help of Serbia. When Serbia was asked for an explanation for the murder of Archduke that happened on 28 June 1914, the reply that was given by Serbia was unsatisfactory to Austria. On 28th June 1914, Serbia declared war on Austria declared war on Serbia. Austria declared war on Serbia, and the countries were divided into two groups, into Central Powers like Germany, Austria, and Turkey on one side, and then Allied powers Britain, France, and USA on other side. But with Russian Revolution in 1917, by making peace with Germany, it was out of the war. But USA entered in 1917 when the ship of US named Lusitania was sunk by Germany. See, you have to be clear of one thing. First World War was started in 1914 but continued up to 1918. In between only USA entered and Russia quitted of World War I. Russia was also belonged to Allied powers only. But in between of World War I, the Russian Revolution was taking place. So it made a peace agreement with Germany and it was out of the war. And then only in 1917 when US ship Lusitania was sunk by Germany, then USA started getting hatred on Germany and they started joining Allied powers due to hatred on Germany of Central Powers. Okay. And next, after exit of Russia, but when USA entered Allied powers, the Allied powers were dominated and led to defeat of Central Powers. See, what the world thought was, when Russia quitted out of the World War I in 1917, then Allied powers was weak compared to Central Powers of Germany, Austria, and Turkey. But when USA entered the war with Allied powers maintained a dominance on the Central Powers, and again the Allied powers won unexpectedly due to Germany only, because the attack of Germany on the ship from USA came into Allied powers and Allied powers won easily on Central Powers. Okay, and on 1918 World War I completed. Let's revise this once again. First, the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, an Austrian prince, was murdered by Gavrilo Princip in Serbia. He was a Bosnian. Gavrilo Princip was a Bosnian. And when Serbia wasn't able to give a satisfactory explanation to Austria, then Austria declared war on Serbia. So he is Gavrilo Princip, not Archduke Franz Ferdinand. He is Gavrilo Princip. You can also find pictures of Archduke Franz Ferdinand on Google. Okay. And Austria declared war on Serbia, and after that Central Powers like Germany, Austria, and Turkey on one side, and then Britain, France, and USA of Allied powers on other side, and World War I started on 28 July 1914. And this Treaty of Versailles and League of Nations, I'll discuss you briefly after this one. Let's go to the next one. I'll show you the US ship Lusitania. So this was the picture of Lusitania ship sunk. Okay. You can also go through this once again. If you want, you can note it down. Our next topic is Treaty of Versailles. In Treaty of Versailles, the terms and conditions were posed by victorious powers such as Britain, France, and USA. The terms and conditions were imposed on Germany. Germany suffered a lot with Treaty of Versailles, and the foundation or the support that was given to Hitler in Germany was due to Treaty of Versailles. So Hitler found this as an advantage and attracted many of the peoples towards him in this Treaty of Versailles, because of this Treaty of Versailles. What this treaty did? This treaty imposed different kinds of punishments on Germany and other countries which was part of this group. Austro-Hungarian Empire was divided into different states. Turkish Empire was also divided. and the colonies led by Turkey in Africa were distributed amongst victorious powers. Germany was asked to pay the compensation. Their coal deposits were taken, as well as the iron deposits were also taken by victorious powers. Their army size was reduced. Their ship's capacity was reduced to 10,000 tons. That's very, very low. Some of their territories were also taken. Their main industrial area was occupied by France and Belgium. With all these, there was all kinds of problems in Germany and other countries which supported Germany after World War I. This Treaty of Versailles, and this also led to a Weimar Republic. As you can see on the map, Weimar Republic in Germany. New republic was established after application of king in Germany. That was also done with the help of this treaty in 1919 after World War I. This Treaty of Versailles gave all the support to Hitler to develop hatred towards victorious powers. So this is all about Treaty of Versailles. And because of this Treaty of Versailles also, a large number of new countries were formed like Austria, Hungary, Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia and Estonia, Latvia and Finland and etc. And the Ottoman Empire was replaced by the Republic of Turkey, and its colonies in Africa were divided among the victorious powers, as we discussed already. So this is all about Treaty of Versailles, which was happened in 1919. So after Treaty of Versailles, our next topic is League of Nations. So League of Nations was started in 11th Jan 1920. So to say this clearly, League of Nations is an organization that was started in 1920 to prevent further wars or World War. But they did not know that World War II will start, and League of Nations could not prevent it. What was the story of this League of Nations? Let me explain this clearly. The brief points are given on the screen, but let me elaborate them and explain each one by one. Okay, League of Nations. It was an organization established after World War I. So let me ask you a question. What was the special of League of Nations? I mean, what was its character? What was it meant to do? What did it do? So it was the first international organization supported by many countries all over the world. Not many countries supported in that time, but yeah, it was established after Treaty of Versailles. One of agreements during Treaty of Versailles was establishment of League of Nations. This League of Nations was established to prevent further wars, to focus on development of countries all over the world, to promote health conditions, and to also increase literacy levels. It was responsible. It was responsible to prevent further world wars or wars. The weapons that were manufactured before and during First World War were to be deteriorated after establishment of League of Nations. It was successful in some cases and it was unsuccessful in different areas. It was only successful until a limit, guys. Let me elaborate that also. Only 58 countries were part of League of Nations. Only 58 members took a participation role in this League of Nations. To some extent, it was successful. When there was a problem with Sweden and Finland, actually the story was the islands located between this Sweden and Finland. There was a conflict between Sweden and Finland that who would rule these islands, because there were islands, right? They are not related to any country, but only Sweden and Finland were top and below of that. Not exactly top and below, yeah, but surrounding to that. So there was a conflict between these two countries. Then League of Nations entered into this conflict and they said that Finland would rule. I mean, Finland would take the responsibility to rule these islands. So this was one case. And the second case, it also entered or interfered in Turkish civil war and helped people by sending the required medical help or support. And this was the second case. Still, so many cases are there. We can't explain that like that over here. Like that, to some extent, this League of Nations was successful, but it could not stop World War II. And also it was gone after World War II, and also as I said, it could not prevent from World War II outbreak. After World War II, the UNO outbreak was started. I mean, UNO came out, United Nations Organization. It was started to maintain peace between countries and countries. So started in 24th October 1945, San Francisco, California, USA. So after World War II and after World War II, whatever had happened, consequences of World War II, some preventive, the peace organizations were there, right? We'll discuss all that after discussing World War II. But for now, we are only discussing about League of Nations. So League of Nations was a peace organization started after World War I, but it could not stop the outbreak of World War II. So again, let me repeat this, whatever they gave in the textbook. League of Nations was the first ever international organization which was formed as a consequence of the Treaty of Versailles. So according to the agreement, during the Treaty of Versailles, there was an agreement to form League of Nations also. It was established on 11th of January 1920. I already said that, it's on screen also. It was formed to prevent wars by trying to settle disputes through negotiations, ensure disarmament, to deteriorate all that army weapons work and all that, and or reduce manufacturing of arms or weapons. It also sought to work for development, labor welfare and health development. It had 58 members or countries that took place in League of Nations. It has limited success initially but failed to prevent the Second World War. Okay, they gave a question over here. This is the question of the day, or you can say question of this topic. How do you think organizations like the League of Nations help to resolve conflict between two countries? What can they do to resolve the conflicts? I'll just explain you the question briefly. So if some two friends are fighting and you are the responsible person to maintain peace in the class, so what will you do to stop those two friends from fighting? Same here only. What will League of Nations do to stop conflict between two countries? You have to write some methods. I hope you can write this. If you can't write this, then let me know in the comment section. I will provide you the answer. Russia, there is a small green note that was given in textbook. Let me just read that out. Russia followed the Julian calendar until 1st February 1918. The country then changed it to the Gregorian calendar or Georgian calendar, whatever you can say, which is followed everywhere today. The Gregorian calendar or Gregorian dates are 13 days ahead from the Julian dates. So, by our calendar, the February revolution took place on 12th March and the October revolution took place on 7th November. This is a short note that they gave in textbook. This is according to the Russian Socialist Revolution that was took place in 1917 to 1922. After Russia was ruled by Tsars, emperors in the early 20th century. Now let's remove all this. I hope you understood about League of Nations. What is League of Nations? Why was it formed? And what is the work of League of Nations? What did it do? I did not say what did it do to stop the conflict between two countries. I just said a situation where it stopped. So you have to find out something like what did it do to stop conflict. Just find that out. This is a simple answer. Even it can be in your question bank, or it can be in your material, or you can Google it. So this is the end of the topic of League of Nations. Now next, let's move to Russian Socialist Revolution in 1917 to 1922. As I was discussing in World War I, in 1917, Russia came out of the war by making a peace agreement with Germany. I have already discussed this before. So what happened in this Russian Revolution and how long did it take? Like it took 5 years, 1917 to 1922, right? 5 years. So what happened in this 5 years? Who were part of this revolution and why did this revolution took place? Let's discuss that now. Going ahead to the next one, we are discussing about Russian Socialist Revolution that took place in 1917 to 1922. So there are two main important revolutions that took place in Russian Revolution. One is February Revolution and one is October Revolution. I supposed to watch this video with full clarity and you have to listen me very clearly so that you will understand each and every word. So when we talk about Russian Socialist Revolution, we must discuss about Tsar Dynasty. TSAR, Tsar Dynasty of Russia. This dynasty of Russia was very famous for its rule with the help of army and rulers. Tsar Nicholas, TSARNICHOLAS II, was the ruler during Russian Revolution in 1917. So Russia was ruled by Tsars emperors in early 20th century. It was a vast area of land spread over two continents, Europe and Asia. Therefore, it had been called a Eurasian power. It had the third largest population in the world, 156 million after China and India. It comprised of several nations like Russia, Ukraine, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan and Turkmenistan, etc. The livelihood of most Russians came from agriculture. Often there were struggles between peasants and feudal lords for control over land. The feudal lords owned most of the lands and peasants paid rent for the land they tilled. So when we talk about revolution, there will be different reasons like economic reasons, social reasons, religious reasons. All of these reasons led to Russian Revolution. So whatever we've discussed until now was the introduction to the Russian Revolution, which is very important to understand. So why this Russian Revolution took place and what were the reasons about this Russian Revolution and when did it occur and why did it occur and about what did it revolute about. We have to discuss all of these topics and what are the consequences of these also we have to discuss, and why did it start, why this Russian Revolution took place in 1917. So if we take a timeline of our world during world wars, beginning of First World War took place in 1914 and in between of First World War 1914 to 1918, this Russian Revolution took place in 1917. After 1918, Treaty of Versailles and all took place. So what were the problems faced by people? More than 85% people in Russia were dependent on agriculture and most of the feudal lords were most of the lands were under control of feudal lords. Dealers used to pay rents to these lords. Feudal lords, the word spells Feudal, okay? I need you to be very clear and important of this Russian Revolution because this is another major topic of this lesson. First was consequences of World War I until we discuss up till now. The second one we are discussing about the important one is Russian Revolution. You have to remember this. Dealers used to pay rents to these lords after harvest. So most of the struggles were there between these farmers and landlords. So, as Russia followed Russian Orthodox Christianity, although Tsar dynasty followed this, there were people from different religions like from Urdu, Buddhists, Muslims, etc. When these people opposed religious policy of Tsar dynasty, it also led to hatred among these people and the rulers of Tsar dynasty, because rulers won't accept another religions as they were from Orthodox Russian Christianity, right? So if you are stubborn, will you accept? No, right? So if you are from Orthodox Hindu family with some inequality in the society, you won't even accept a man coming from Muslim religion or a Christian religion. If you are seeing everyone with equality and without any religious discrimination, you will see everyone with equity. But it's not like that over here with Tsar dynasty and their rulers. Then what are the other reasons that developed hatred between king and people? There were 2 million soldiers during World War I. While more and more soldiers were appointed, the more and more damage took place. People developed hatred against the rulers because of the major development that was taking place because of more and more employment of soldiers in the military. There was a demonstration of 10,000 women on the capital side of Petersburg. The Saint Petersburg was renamed as Leningrad, again changed to Petersburg. So it was named against rulers on their rule, and it was again changed on its original name after the Lenin's rule. When we talk about Petrograd, it was renamed as Stalingrad. Again, it is renamed as Petrograd. So, when St. Petersburg was under the control of Lenin, it was named after Lenin, that is Leningrad, and after the death of Lenin, it was again renamed to Petersburg. In this manner, the famous rulers like Stalin and Lenin, with their name, the locations Petrograd and St. Petersburg were changed, and again they were changed to their original names. These are two important points we have to remember from Russian Revolution. Okay, so then on March 8, 1917, what that 10,000 women demonstrated in Petersburg, it led to what we call as February Revolution. As Russia followed Julian calendar over these days, and power ended to hands of provisional government led by Mensheviks. So here comes the role play of Mensheviks and Bolsheviks. So as you can see on the screen, February Revolution and power goes to Mensheviks. Okay, and moving on to the next one, there were two important partitions in Russian Revolution. There were Bolsheviks and Mensheviks. You might ask, what is the difference between these Bolsheviks and Mensheviks? Before we discuss about Bolsheviks only, let's differentiate between these Bolsheviks and Mensheviks so that you can understand Bolsheviks and Mensheviks upcoming topics clearly and easily. Bolsheviks represented a majority of socialists who wanted revolution, and Bolsheviks believed in necessity of a revolution led to proletariat only. Whereas Mensheviks believed that with a collaboration of bourgeoisie, capitalist and industrialist was necessary. They believed about capitalists and industrialists, but Bolsheviks believed about socialism and democracy and all that. So this is the major difference between Bolsheviks and Mensheviks. The Menshevik party was led by Irakli, Irakli, and Bolsheviks party was led by Lenin. Most of the people demanded for end of war, but the new government under Irakli, that is Menshevik party of February, where the consequence of February Revolution led to power of Mensheviks, but the government under Irakli did not want to end the war. They wanted to keep the Russian pride at high level. So they decided to continue in World War I. People opposed that, and it also led to Russian Revolution. So until now we were discussing about February Revolution and what are. Now I'll explain you about economic depression which occurred between 1929 to 1939. It began around the end of 1929 and lasted almost till 1939 when the Second World War started. During this decade, the economy declined worldwide because of a decline in demand and fall in prices. It lasted for almost 10 years. People had different types of problems all over the world. The major problem faced by people all over the world was mass unemployment and economic breakdown. There was two kinds of problems during Great Depression. There was a decline in demand, fall in prices, and factories were closed because the demand was low. When the factories were closed, prices went up. The purchase power of people was also reduced. And this cyclic effect on economy led to decline of economies all over the world. The prices of most of the agricultural produces came down more than 60%. 25% of people in US and 33% of people all over the world suffered with unemployment. Most of the governments were not in position to bring back the situation to normal condition. Different politicians and economists from all over the world criticized policies followed by government at that time. Most of the rulers never thought about the problems to be addressed, and without providing proper security to people, they continued to rule countries all over the world. Different politicians and economists from all over the world criticized policies followed by government, as I said already, and one of such economists were J.M. Keyes. He suggested that ownership of factories must be held by government, so that during this crisis or difficult times, the government, without thinking profits, will provide all the basic requirement for people and also help them. And he also insisted that government should take responsibility of development and welfare of people, and one such policy was adopted by Franklin Roosevelt in US. I know you are all familiar with Franklin Roosevelt. At least you've heard his name, right? He started New Deal policy for recovery of US, and it was also known as the 3 R's policy, as you can see on the mind map given on the screen. Franklin Roosevelt's 3 R's policy. What does this 3 R's represent? First, for relief, reform and recovery were major ideas of Franklin Roosevelt in the New Deal policy. When more than 25% of the people were unemployed, when most of the factories were closed, when most of the banks were closed, when most of the industries was closed, when people suffered with all kinds of problems, he wanted to give some relief for the victims who were suffering from Great Depression. And reformed financial institution, recovery by public bridges, roads, and by going on different constructions and public works, he wanted to provide employment to the people so that he could at least save some of the people in this Great Depression. During those times, there was no social security scheme. The Britain was the first one to implement social security scheme like unemployment doles, sickness coverage, and health schemes, childcare, etc. All these made up the idea of welfare state, a state which ensured a basic minimum dignified life for all the citizens. US also adopted these social security schemes by providing unemployment insurance, requirement pensions, health schemes and childcare. All these were provided in US also. Okay, impact of economic depression as shown on the screen. You can see the placards was shown on the screen and the placards were holding by two men, and you can also see this famous picture of economic depression even given in 10th class SSC textbook. Measures under Great Depression. The 3 R's policy by Franklin Roosevelt. Okay, so USA also adopted these social security schemes by providing unemployment insurance, retirement pensions, health schemes and child care. All these were provided in US also, as I said earlier. With this, some kind of recovery took place in US, and with the start of Second World War in 1939, most of the countries came out of it, and this Great Depression was lasted more than 10 years. And you can also see this Franklin Roosevelt 3 R's made US out of economic depression in 1929, right? And also by 1939 they were out of it, and it almost lasted for 10 years from 1929 to 1939. And you can also like see the economic depression in Germany coming up. Economic depression in Germany. Then what was the situation of Germany during that time? We already discussed that Germany suffered a lot with Treaty of Versailles, as the Treaty of Versailles, like they did more to Germany, more laws. Their most of the agricultural products came down to greater extent. Their industrial production came down to 40% of its 1929 level. Workers lost their jobs or were paid reduced wages. And from 1924 to 1928, they got support from US. Financial and economic recovery of Germany was done with with the funds provided by US from 1924 to 1928. By 1939, US had its own problem. It suffered with Great Depression, so it wasn't in any position to fund Germany and was asked to pay back the amount given to Germany by US. The problems of Germany rose. To address these problems, they printed currency recklessly, like without knowing what would be the consequences if they print the money more and more. When the money was printed recklessly, the value of money came down. So we can ask a major question here, and before moving to the next one, we have to answer a typical question that why government won't print extra money and more money to solve the problems of poor. See, this is the major question asked by everyone. So now let's answer this question and move to the next topic, okay? And also we have to even cover some more points in economic depression in Germany. Before moving to the next one, we have to answer a typical question that why government won't print more money to solve the problems of the poor. Okay, so I have found this solution from a book, and that book was written by Rupa Pai. So the big question was, why does government simply print more money so that everyone has enough? And the next question is also included in this question. Who decides that 74.54 rupees is equal to $1, 1 US dollar? So the answer is from the source of this book, so you want to know about economics, written by Rupa Pai. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, let's read what have been written by Rupa Pai in his book. Okay, I know, right? But there are very good reasons. However, the answer is rather convoluted and involves understanding several other things first, like why government prints money at all. So brace yourself, this is going to be a long one. Okay, what happens when you print money? The amount of money that people have increases, but at the same time the price of the things goes up. Underline this one. When you print more money, the money that people have will be increasing, but at the same time the price of things goes up, so that nothing actually changes. The poor can still only afford what they could before the money was printed. Let's see how does that work. So this is a case 1 when the government prints some more extra money. Let's say there are 10 people in a village. The government decides to print 500 rupees notes and give one note to each people in the village, A, B, C, D and E. Suddenly there is more money overall in the village, or in the village Manipur. Never mind that only 5 people have it. So A has 100 rupees, B has 100 rupees, C has 100 rupees and followed by D and E. So these 5 guys have 100 rupees each. Now let's say it is a mango season. Anyway, it is a mango season. And a lovely harvest of mangoes has just come in. The mango farmer Alfonso has 5 boxes of mangoes and is selling them at 50 rupees each. So let me take up a pen. So now first A and B comes. Okay, first A and B comes. to the shop where the seller is selling box of Alfonso mangoes at just 50 rupees each. Let me erase that, I'm sorry. For 50 rupees each. Okay? And A and B buys box of Alfonso mangoes just for 50 rupees, and they'll be having balance of 50 rupees. And when it comes to C and D, so what do you think that seller is having a profit now? So before seller was having 0 rupees, now it came to 100 rupees because both A and B paid 50-50 each, right? So both A and B paid 50-50 each. Now what happens next? So as he get a profit of 100 rupees, now he increases the price of box of Alfonso mangoes to 75 rupees and sell them to C and D. Okay, he increases the price from 50 to 75 rupees, that is extra 25 rupees, and sell them to C and D. So you can see the difference when the amount of money that gets printed is increasing, and also but at the same time the amount of things is also increasing. Now it's just 25% increment. But when it comes to E, at day 2, so day 1 morning he sells a box of Alfonso mangoes at 50 rupees, and in the day 1 afternoon he sells at 75 rupees for C and D, and E in the day 2 he sells a box of Alfonso mangoes at rupees 90. Imagine the cost from 50 to 90. Okay, 40 rupees have been increased. An increment of 40 rupees have been done by the seller. And now you can get a clarity that seller has having a profit of, not a profit, but a total balance of 250 rupees with him. He have a huge amount now. But when it comes to A, B, C, D and E, they doesn't have any money. A and B has still 50 rupees with them, and C and D, whereas C and D just have 25 rupees with them. And E, if he buys this box of Alfonso, he just have 10 rupees with him. Okay, so when he also buys this E also buys this 90 rupees box of Alfonso mangoes, it goes to the rate of 340 rupees. So now imagine, so if you take 500 rupees as the total and 340 rupees, you can say like 84% from 100% have been deducted from the total amount balance from the village money pool. Like you can see A, B, C, D and E are having 500 rupees in the total, and then from that 500 rupees just 340 rupees have been sent to, it went to that seller, Alfonso seller. You see, when the amount of money in a system increases, we started by just 500 rupees in our example, but compare this with our real life situation. Without the number of goods available increasing, there are only 5 boxes of mangoes available. The prices of things go up. In other words, the value or purchasing power of your money goes down. 100 rupees can no longer buy today what it could buy yesterday. Like it's the example of E. Not E, it's example of A and B. Like they bought it today for 50 rupees, but they can buy it tomorrow for 75 rupees. Can they? No, right? They can't buy for 75 rupees. Even for C and D, they bought today for 75 rupees and have 25 rupees remaining, but they can buy tomorrow at the rate of 90 rupees. So even C and D can't buy, and E definitely can't buy. At first, A and B benefited from extra money they received and were able to buy a box of mangoes just for 50 rupees. They would not have been able to do so if they didn't have the extra money. But in the end, everyone lost out. Even Alfonso, despite making all the extra money. Even him, the Alfonso seller, even making 340 rupees from total 500 rupees, even he is not benefited. Because Instead of the 250 rupees, he would have made his mangoes sold at 50 rupees a box. Instead of 340 rupees, if he just continues with this 50 rupees, it would be normal. But he went on increasing even, because he need profits, right? So what happened here? How? Because when the Alfonso goes out to buy bananas, even in the bananas case, it's the same. So even Alfonso mango seller went on increasing the rates, and then what would the banana seller guy do? Even he will increase his rates by seeing the Alfonso mango or by not seeing it. So when he go to purchase a bunch of bananas, even he is unable to purchase them because even the price of bananas went up. If you extend this example to many more people suddenly coming into money and a lot more money in the money pool, you can see how the prices of many other goods will also go up in a domino effect. You know about dominoes, right? Sending prices up as a whole. That's why it's sort of silly for governments to simply print money and give it to people. It not only doesn't help the poor, it is bad for each and everyone. This kind of increase in general level of prices things is called inflation. Okay, inflation, I think it's a more keyword in economics. There are many reasons that inflation occurs, but one of the reasons is more money in the system. Inflation is generally considered a bad thing because it decreases the value of money you have, as it did in with the case of Germany we have read about. Despite knowing how this works, government do not print more money every year. One reason is of course to replace the torn and old notes in the system. So the government only prints more money to replace old and torn notes in the system. But the second is to keep the to keep the economy running. Governments believe it is necessary to print more money every year. But why? So to answer all of the extra questions, I recommend you all to buy this book written by Rupa Pai, which is very useful for basic learners like us. So if we go on discussing about all this, we'll waste our time and also our topic won't be covered in time. So let's move ahead and read more on Great Depression in Germany. When currency was printed recklessly, the currency value came down. In 1929 April, it was 24,000 marks. So marks is older currency of Germany in 1920. And 24,000 marks was equal to $1 at that time. And by December it reached 9 crores, and by end of the year it reached trillions. See, imagine the situation of Germany in that time during Great Depression. $1 was equal to 1 trillion mark to 2 trillion marks in German currency. People carrying bundles and bundles of crores to buy a piece of bread. So as we discussed in the previous example, when money and amount of money printed by government increases, so accordingly the prices of the products also gets increased. And Germany became famous, and people all over the world shown their sympathy by observing situation of Germany during Great Depression. There was no political stability. Government was not in any position to address problems of people. People did not get support from government. All these led to political instability, and people had all kinds of problems during Great Depression in Germany and continues all over the world. So this is the end of the economic depression in Germany and USA, and what happened between these two, and what happened between 1928, 1929 and 1924 to 1928, and all these. I think all these concepts are they are covered. The next one, let's go to fascism and Nazism. Even after Great Depression or even before Great Depression, one of the major problems faced by all over the countries in the world was fascism. Let's discuss that. So the next thing, rise of fascism and Nazism. So first, what was fascism? It was an ideology developed in defeated countries of World War I. Take an example of Germany. Why people of Germany supported Hitler? They had different kinds of problems. They thought that Hitler will provide all the solutions to them. So they supported Hitler. So in the same manner, different fascist leaders all over the world, most of them believed in military conquest. They believed in expansion. They believed in aggressive nationalism. Most of the countries which followed fascism, they believed in state-owned capitalism or state-controlled capitalism. They were against communism, they were against liberalism also. And they were against complete ownership of private people also. Even though they were supportive to private ownership at some extent, but they were against complete ownership of private and believed in state-controlled capitalism. And they also believed in concept of expansion of countries by occupying smaller countries. So most of these leaders believed that worshipping of state is the most important thing. Such leaders ruled all over the world since 1920 to 1940, especially in countries like Germany, Hitler in 1933, Italy, Mussolini in 1932, Spain, General Franco in 1939, and even Japan Empire started its expedition or conquer over China and Korea. With all these fascist leaders combined, they wanted to rule and occupy most of the countries all over the world through aggressive nationalism and military conquest. So this is all about a brief concept of fascism. Next, let's move to Hitler and learn about Hitler and his Nazism. Moving ahead to the next one, we have to learn about Hitler and his Nazism. Now let's learn about the role of Hitler in Germany. He was a powerful speaker. His passion and his words motivated people of Germany. He promised that he will build a strong nation and he will undo the injustice took place by Treaty of Versailles. He also promised complete employment to people, full production, and he also promised to remove all foreign influences on Germany and also promised for removal of all foreign conspiracies. With all these, when he was projected as frontline soldiers, people believed in that and they extended their support for Hitler, and it made Hitler one of the strongest soldiers in world wars. What were the policies followed by Hitler to become powerful? Let's see that. As we already discussed about first Hitler's strength, that is powerful speaker, he had capacity to mobilize masses. Okay? Huge public gatherings, and during those public gatherings, speeches given by Hitler were very motivational. The image of Germans ruling all over the world attracted people to support Hitler, and his party just won 2.6% of votes in 1928 election. By the time 1932 elections were held, he won more than 37% of the votes. He became a powerful leader within a short period of time. So what did he do? He used to conduct huge rallies and public meetings. During Hitler rally and speeches, there were very familiar scenes like people holding red flag with swastika symbol on it. With his speeches and rallies, he created unity among Germans, and the image of victorious Germans ruling all over the world motivated German people to support Hitler, and later it led to massive destruction in Poland and different countries of Europe. So what was the situation of youth in Nazi Germany? When Hitler came to power, he realized that he needed massive support from people and massive support from younger generation. So the training used to start at the age of 3. And at the age of 3, they were given red flags to wave. As we already discussed how these flags look like, and it is also shown on screen. They were also used to wave in rallies and houses. After that, immediately followed by school up to age of 10 years, followed by school, they were asked to give all the required energy to rebuild Germany. Next, followed by military service. At the school, followed by military service. and the promise given by Hitler about complete employment was fulfilled with some schemes followed by Hitler and policies followed by Hitler in Nazi Germany. What was the responsibility given to them? The responsibility was that to undergo severe physical training and psychological training that made them very strong, and they were asked to play different kinds of sports which gave high level of body strength like boxing, wrestling and rugby. Different kinds of sports which give physical strength to children were encouraged. And in schools, role of women was very low as they were confined to homes, and women were considered as low caste citizens compared to men, as men were given more responsibilities, and the responsibility that woman was given just to give more birth to men to increase the Nazis. The role of women in Nazi Germany was confined to homes. When women was not considered important for outside work, they were asked to take care of children, and rules and regulation given to women were very strict. And the punishment for violating the rules were very harsh and cruel also. When Hitler came to power, he was only with 37% of the votes, as we discussed earlier. After coming to power, he offered dictatorship in March 1933. When dictatorship was announced, most of the socialists and communists opposed him. Anyway, they'll oppose him, right? All the political opponents were suppressed. All those who opposed Hitler were tortured. He kept policies and other he kept policies and other agents to get everything under his control. There were police in regular uniform. There were secret services called SS. There were strong troopers called ST and a squad called Gestapo, which was called as Secret State Police, and was also asked them to observe each and every person who worked against Hitler and Nazi rulers. Hence, they were tortured and punished brutally by Hitler for opposition. By this, the total situation, like creating the state of horror and fear, the total situation of the Germany was under control of Hitler. And this is all about Hitler and his Nazism. Okay. There were different reasons for World War II. The first and most important reason can be considered as Treaty of Versailles. This Treaty of Versailles took place in 1919 after World War I. Most of conditions and rules were against Germany. Victorious powers asked them for a compensation. Their iron and coal deposits were lost. Their army size was reduced from 9 lakhs to just 1 lakh, and ship sizes were reduced to just 10,000 tons. Some of their territories were also taken. Their main industrial area was occupied by France. With all these, German people thought that it was a humiliation for them with Treaty of Versailles. So they developed hatred against victorious powers, and this was one of the reasons behind World War I. Okay, this is the first reason behind World War I. The Second World War was failure of League of Nations. As we already discussed, League of Nations was established after World War I to maintain peace and stability among all the countries, but it was unsuccessful. When League of Nations was established, there was no entry for Germany and other defeated powers. Even though Woodrow Wilson played an important role in the formation of League of Nations, US Congress opposed role of US in League of Nations. With that, US was not part of League of Nations. League of Nations was unable to prevent World War II. The failure of League of Nations was second reason. And we have different other reasons like German challenge to vengeful domination. When they had a huge humiliation with Treaty of Versailles, most of the people developed hatred against victorious powers, and all of them supported Hitler because they were having no food, no proper money, their iron and coal deposits were taken, their army sizes was reduced, their ship sizes was reduced, and all the facilities that they were having before were gone. And they are in huge humiliation with victorious powers, so that's why they have developed some hatred, not some, a huge amount of hatred among victorious powers. Okay, and Next thing, fear from socialism and communism. To stop expansion of socialism and communism of Russia, eventually Britain, France, including USA, supported Hitler. This is the fourth reason, that was appeasement of Hitler. This led to appeasement of Hitler. Hitler became very powerful and he acted against Britain, France, USA. So when Russia was following socialism and communism, Hitler, even though some of the victorious powers like Britain, France, USA, even though they supported Hitler from stopping socialism and communism that was growing in Russia, and then this was appeasement of Hitler, which made Hitler very powerful amongst all of the members, all of the soldiers. So this was the fourth reason behind World War II. The next one, immediate cause of World War II. So what were the immediate causes of World War II? As we discussed about of long-term causes, now let's look at immediate reasons that provoked World War II. Germany became very powerful under Hitler. Hitler asked Poland to give their port of Danzig. Poland refused it. So when Hitler attacked Poland, the German tanks invaded Poland. As Poland was already made an alliance with Britain, France and USA and combined with victorious powers, World War II started. Poland was already with Britain, France and Russia, as we discussed earlier, and Germany with Italy and Japan, which were made a triple alliance before. And these two groups fought with one another in World War II. So this was an immediate reason behind World War II. Okay? And now let's discuss consequences of World War II. And also before going into that, this is German Empire during World War II. As you can see the map and also the swastika symbol on red flag on the top corner, right top corner. The defeat and the end. The German was defeated in the famous Battle of Stalingrad in early 1943. People all over the Eastern Europe welcomed Soviet forces as the liberators of the hated Nazi rule. They captured Berlin, capital city of Germany. Hitler and his close associates committed suicide to avoid being captured and died in 1945. Eventually, Germany was divided into two parts. Germany Democratic Republic, eastern part came under the influence of USSR, United Soviet Socialist Russia, and Federal Republic of Germany, western came under the influence of USA, United States of America. In the Far East, Japan surrendered to USA after bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We will discuss this. With the Second World War came to an end in August 1945. So these were the pictures of an atom bomb that was dropped by airship on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I hope everyone would encounter this in their life. About knowing all this. So this was the area that was under Japanese control in 1942. In World War II. So this was a Marshall Plan. To overcome the economic collapse of Germany and Japan after the war, the USA came up with Marshall Plan to fund the economic revival of the two countries. Likewise, the USSR came up with a package for the revival of East European countries. Okay, just remember all this, because we'll again discuss all this in consequences of World War II. So these are the consequences of World War II. Germany, Italy and Japan were defeated in World War II, as we discussed earlier. By August 1945, most of the countries accepted their defeat, but Japan did not accept. So USA dropped atom bombs of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, as I told you already, but not that detail, okay? When Japan was surrendered after this attack, Hitler and his followers committed suicide in 1945. So with all these, the total situation went into the hands of Britain, France and USA because they won the World War. But there is a slight change in after World War II. So the mistakes were not repeated after World War II. That is, they did not impose punishments on defeated powers like they did in World War I. Instead of giving punishments, support was given to defeated powers through UNO, United Nations Organization. There were different consequences after these world wars. So I was telling about the support, right? That support was like Marshall Plan. So that support was Marshall Plan. To overcome the economic collapse of Germany and Japan after the war, USA came up with Marshall Plan to fund the economic revival of the two countries. Likewise, the USSR came up with a package for the revival of Eastern European countries. Okay, I'm just revising this again. Next, let's discuss all of this change in balance of power, democratic principles asserted, enormous human cost, enfranchisement of women, and new international organizations. Let's discuss these consequences of World War II. First one is enormous human cost. More than 10 million people in World War I and more than 20 to 25 million civilians and people in World War II were dead. All this destruction took place because of World War I and II. There were people who suffered with severe injuries also. During World War I and II, enormous human cost took place. As you can see the bar graph of war-related deaths between 1500 to 2000. Okay? And the next thing, from India, 75,000 soldiers died when they fought for British. So why Indian people fought for British? Because Britishers promised Indians that if they would won in World War II, then they'll give independence to India. So Indians thought that this would be far better than supporting Hitler, and also they can get independence by fighting for British. Okay, so they fought for British against the defeated powers, that is Germany, Italy and Japan in World War II, and they got independence in 1947 after the end of World War II in 1945. So that's why even in India enormous human cost took place, that is 75,000 soldiers were dead and when they fought for British. With all this enormous human cost and loss of human life took place because of World War I and World War II. The second one, the important one, is change in balance of power. This one. The power after World War I went into the hands of democratic rulers from weak empires like Austro-Hungarian Empire and Turkish Empire. We can say it as Ottoman Empire also. All the empire in Europe got demolished and princely states were established. The change that took place after World War II was most of the countries became independent. We can take a main example like India. Most of the colonies got independence from these colonial powers or developed countries of Europe. This was the change and consequences of World War I and II. Okay. The next one is democratic principles were asserted. So the world has understood the dangers of under undemocratic government after the two world wars. People all over the world encouraged democracy and they went against capitalism. People all over the world got to know the importance of democracy. This led to increasing in need of democracy. With the First World War, several empires also ended. The Russian Empire, Ottoman Empire replaced by democratic and secular state in Turkey. After the World War II, the colonies got their independence and several new countries were born across Asia and Africa, as we discussed earlier. Next one, enfranchisement of women. So what is enfranchisement? This is called right to vote. After a long struggle for political right like right to vote, British women got this right in 1918. And with the new conference, women began raising their voice for equality in all walks of life. Getting the right to vote was a big step in that direction. Let's discuss this briefly. So most of the women all over the world got right to vote. Women in Britain got right to vote in 1928, Japan women got in 1945, France women got in 1946, India gave universal adult franchise at a go in 1950, and USA women got to vote in 1965. Even black people in US got to vote in 1965. With all these, World War I and World War II developed feelings of democracy, equality and enfranchisement of women all over the world. These were major consequences of World War I and World War II. Yeah, it gave a rise to the new beginning of democratic life and equality was begun after World War II. The last but not the least was new international organizations. The UNO, well known as the United Nations Organization, was established on 24th October 1945 after World War II. So it was established after World War II. United Nations is a kind of world government based on four principles: preserving peace, upholding human rights, respecting international law, and promoting social progress. It works through agencies like UNICEF, UNESCO, WHO, and ILO, etc. The UNO, despite being accused of becoming a tool of the great powers like USA, Russia, USSR, has managed to prevent wars and maintain peace and stability. We learn more about UNO in the upcoming videos. Okay, so this is just a part of consequences of World War II, the UNO, but UNO has a lot more to do, and their working principles and all their policies and all strategies are different, so we'll know about that further. This is the photos of UNO. Okay, so I hope this is the end of the video. So a lot of efforts were kept by me in making of the video. I hope you will recognize it, and please like, share, subscribe my channel and comment in the comment section below. Thank you for watching. Until then, signing off.